A Roman emperor's face stares up from the dirt in Japan. That single coin should not exist there, and yet it does. This is the power of an out-of-place artifact, a physical object that defies the map of history we think we know. By the end of this exploration, you will see the ancient world not as a collection of isolated cultures, but as a surprisingly connected network of trade and curiosity. We will examine a Viking sword buried in North American soil and delicate Chinese pottery found in the heart of Africa, asking how they made such impossible journeys. What does a world look like where ideas and treasures traveled across oceans long before our history books say they could? That Roman coin in Japan is a perfect example of this enigma in action. To truly understand its power, we need to define what makes an artifact out of place. It is not simply an old object found far from home. An out-of-place artifact, often called an OOP art, is something whose very existence at its discovery site contradicts our established timeline and map of ancient cultures. Its material, its style of craftsmanship, its cultural fingerprints all scream one civilization, but it is found buried in the soil of another, often separated by vast oceans or impassable mountain ranges. For it to be taken seriously, the artifact must be rigorously authenticated. Archaeologists must rule out modern contamination, a practical joke from a century ago, or an outright forgery. The context of its burial is everything. When those checks are passed, the real mystery begins. The object transforms from a mere curiosity into a profound question. How did it travel such an impossible distance? Was it carried in the pack of a lone traveler, traded hand to hand over generations, or loaded onto a ship whose design we have forgotten? Each genuine out-of-place artifact is a silent witness to a journey our history books missed. They are not mistakes in the record, but clues to a larger, more connected story of human ambition. As we explore our list, see each item not as a solitary oddity, but as a testament to the incredible reach of ancient curiosity and the trade networks that wove our world together long before we thought possible. These trade routes were the lifeblood of a hidden global conversation. We often think of ancient trade in terms of famous names, the Silk Road linking Rome and China, or the bustling ports of the Mediterranean. Yet these were just the most visible arteries of a circulatory system that reached into every corner of the inhabited world. The real engine was desire, a powerful human craving for the rare and the beautiful. Spices that could transform a meal, vibrant dyes for royal robes, gleaming gold and lustrous silk, these were not mere commodities. They were physical symbols of power, knowledge, and divine favor. To possess something from a distant, almost mythical land was to tap into its mystery and prestige. This desire created a market, and where there is a market, there will always be adventurers willing to meet it. These merchant travelers, navigating by stars and stories, became the original global connectors. They were the couriers of civilization, carrying far more than cargo in their holds and saddlebags. A bolt of silk could carry a new weaving technique. A handful of peppercorns could finance a temple. A single decorative motif on a piece of pottery, traded across a continent, could inspire an artist a world away. This is where our out-of-place artifacts find their voice. They are not random accidents. They are the lost receipts, the stray pieces of luggage from these monumental journeys. Each one is a data point suggesting that our maps are incomplete, that the lines connecting ancient cities were longer and more daring than we ever documented. This forces a profound shift in perspective. We must move from imagining a world of isolated cultures developing in splendid isolation to envisioning a vibrant, interactive web of exchange. It was a world of constant, if slow, cross-pollination, where ideas had wings and objects could travel thousands of miles from their point of origin. This interconnected reality is the only stage grand enough to explain the incredible objects we are about to encounter. Buried in the soil of a coastal settlement in Maine was a small, silent revolution. It was not a weapon or a tool, but a single silver coin worn smooth by time. When archaeologists carefully cleaned it, they found markings that should have been impossible. This was no colonial Spanish piece or English shilling. It was a Norse penny, minted nearly 1,000 years ago during the reign of King Olaf Kyrre of Norway. Its discovery among the remains of a Native American community was a shock to the system of history. This coin, small enough to hide in your palm, carries a monumental implication. It is a direct physical link to the Viking sagas that speak of a land called Vinland, a place of wild grapes somewhere west of Greenland. For generations, those stories were considered just that, stories, perhaps mixed with legend. But the Maine penny, as it is now known, changes the conversation. It proves that Norse explorers did indeed reach the shores of North America. More importantly, it shows that their presence, however temporary, resulted in some form of contact. This coin did not fall from a Viking's pocket directly onto that Maine site. Its context suggests it was traded, carried, and valued over time, passing from hand to hand until it became a part of the local material world. Think of that journey. A coin struck in a Norwegian mint, carried across the North Atlantic on a Viking gnar, and then somehow, through a meeting we can only imagine, transferred to the people who had lived on that land for millennia. It is a metallic whisper of a moment of contact, a tiny, durable witness to a meeting of two worlds. This artifact does more than prove the Vikings got here. It challenges the very idea of discovery. Columbus's voyage in 1492 was a world-changing event, but it was not the first transatlantic contact. The Maine penny pushes that timeline back by centuries, suggesting that the Atlantic was not an impenetrable barrier, but a highway navigated by the most daring sailors of their age. It turns a legendary saga into a tangible truth, reminding us that history is often written not in grand declarations, but in the quiet, enduring evidence left behind in the earth. The journey across the Atlantic was not the only impossible voyage suggested by these artifacts. Far to the south, on the high-altitude plains of the Bolivian Andes, rests an object that challenges the very geography of ancient civilization. Known as the Fuente Magna bowl, this large ceremonial vessel was discovered near the shores of Lake Titicaca, a place sacred to the indigenous cultures of the region. At first glance, it appears to be a local artifact with carvings of animals and designs familiar to the area, but look closer and the story becomes far more complex. Etched into the stone surface alongside those local symbols is a script that looks nothing like any known writing system of the ancient Americas. To many researchers, the markings bear a startling resemblance to Proto-Cuneiform, the early writing of ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, thousands of miles away. This is not a subtle similarity. The bowl presents a jarring fusion, a cultural conversation that, according to mainstream history, should never have happened. The implication is staggering. It suggests a connection, however indirect, between the world's first cities in the Middle East and the sophisticated cultures developing in the high Andes. How could such a thing be possible? The scholarly debate is intense and ongoing. Some experts argue the script is a coincidence, a case of similar shapes arising independently. Others suggest it might be a modern addition, though the bowl's discovery context makes that difficult to prove. But if the script is authentic and ancient, the Fuente Magna bowl becomes a question carved in stone. It asks us to consider a world where ideas, or perhaps even people, traveled across oceans we thought were uncrossable, not from the east in Viking longships, but from the very cradle of civilization itself. This artifact does not provide easy answers. Instead, it opens a door to a profound mystery, inviting us to wonder about the true scale of ancient human interaction and the lost chapters of our shared story that may still be waiting silent in the earth. A terracotta face from ancient Rome stares back at us from the soil of pre-Columbian Mexico. The Tlaxcalixtlahuaca head was not a surface find or a museum curiosity, but an object with a serious archaeological pedigree. It was excavated from a burial offering at a Toltec site, a context that dates securely between the 9th and 13th centuries. The figurine's features are unmistakable, a distinct Roman beard and hairstyle carved in a style completely foreign to Mesoamerican art of that period. This was not a local artist's attempt at a foreign face, it was a foreign face buried with honor in a new world. The secure context is what makes this artifact so compelling and so difficult to explain away as a modern intrusion or a clever forgery. Someone, long before Columbus sailed, placed this Roman object into a sacred offering. So how did it get there? The most plausible explanation is also the most extraordinary. It traveled. Perhaps it was cargo on a Roman vessel blown hopelessly off course, a relic from a shipwreck whose survivors or floating debris reached an unknown shore. More likely, it moved not in one epic voyage, but through the slow, patient engine of long-distance trade. Imagine this small head passing from hand to hand over generations, a curiosity traded from a Roman merchant to a Silk Road caravan, then perhaps to a Siberian trader across a land bridge, and down through countless exchanges until it finally came to rest in the Valley of Mexico. Its journey, whether direct or impossibly indirect, demonstrates a profound truth about ancient commerce. Objects could travel distances that stagger the imagination, not because of one planned expedition, but through a vast, interconnected relay of human curiosity and desire. This terracotta head is more than an oddity. It is a physical testament to the unpredictable and far-reaching nature of that hidden network, a single piece of evidence that the ancient world was whispering across distances we are only beginning to hear. Jade has always spoken a language of power and the sacred. In ancient China during the mighty Shang dynasty, it was the ultimate symbol of heaven's mandate, carved into ritual blades and ceremonial ornaments for kings and ancestors. At the very same time, thousands of miles across the Pacific, the Olmec civilization of Mesoamerica was also shaping their world from jade, believing it held the breath of life and the essence of water and maize. Two brilliant cultures, two parallel obsessions with the same luminous stone, yet a discovery whispers of a connection far deeper than coincidence. Archaeologists have identified jade artifacts within Shang dynasty contexts that bear the unmistakable fingerprints of Olmec craftsmanship. The geological signature of the stone itself matches Mesoamerican sources, not local Chinese deposits. Even more telling are the artistic motifs, the distinct stylistic choices in how the stone was worked, choices that resonate with Olmec artistic tradition half a world away. This is not a case of similar ideas arising independently. This is a specific material shaped by a specific cultural hand, appearing in a place it simply should not be. The question this artifact poses is monumental. How did raw Olmec jade, or perhaps the finished artwork, cross the vast and formidable Pacific Ocean? A direct, planned voyage between these civilizations remains in the realm of speculation, a thrilling idea without definitive proof, but the ocean itself provides a more subtle, plausible pathway. Powerful currents like the Kuroshio Current act as natural conveyor belts across the northern Pacific. We know that Japanese fishing boats have been swept across these currents and washed ashore in North America in historical times. Could a similar natural mechanism have carried a vessel, whether intentionally navigating or tragically adrift, from the coasts of the Americas to the shores of Asia? Even if such a journey was accidental, the cargo that survived would have been nothing short of miraculous to those who found it. Imagine a Shang dynasty lord receiving this otherworldly green stone, carved with strange, powerful faces. It would have been perceived as a treasure from the gods themselves, a celestial gift affirming his divine right to rule. This transforms the artifact from a mere curiosity into a key that unlocks a new way of seeing. It suggests that the ocean was not just a barrier but occasionally a bridge, that luxury goods of profound spiritual significance could, through a combination of human daring and natural forces, traverse the globe, carrying with them not just material value, but an echo of a distant world's soul. The Olmec jade in China stands as a quiet testament to the possibility that our ancestors' worlds were intertwined by threads as fine and strong as the currents that move the sea itself. The soapstone birds of Great Zimbabwe watch over a silent city. These massive, elegant carvings perched on monoliths are the national emblem of Zimbabwe today, symbols of a powerful African kingdom that flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries. Their form is distinctly African, yet their stylistic language speaks to a wider world. The stylized feathers, the regal posture, even the very concept of a bird as a symbol of royal authority, find echoes not in neighboring cultures, but in the art of distant Persia and China. This is not coincidence, it is conversation. Excavations at the site have turned up the physical receipts of this dialogue, fragments of delicate Chinese celadon pottery with its distinctive green glaze, and shards of Persian faience, a brilliant glazed ceramic. These are not stray trinkets lost by a lone traveler. They are the durable remains of sustained, high-level trade. Great Zimbabwe was a powerhouse built on gold and ivory, resources that were in desperate demand across the Indian Ocean world. Its rulers did not live in isolation. They were savvy participants in a vast economic network, the maritime Silk Road that connected the coasts of Africa to Arabia, India, and all the way to the imperial courts of China. The Chinese celadon and Persian ware were the luxury goods acquired with that wealth, the fine tableware and decorative objects that signaled a kingdom's prestige and global connections. This evidence fundamentally reshapes the narrative. It moves medieval Africa from the periphery of world history to its very center of commerce. Great Zimbabwe was not a remote, mysterious ruin, but a cosmopolitan capital, its leaders drinking from Chinese cups while their gold fueled economies across the globe. The stone birds, then, are more than sculptures. They are sentinels of a forgotten truth, watching over the proof that the African interior was a dynamic, engaged player in a truly ancient world economy. A small stone tablet from a Tennessee burial mound carries a message no one expected to find. Known as the Bat Creek Stone, it was excavated from a site belonging to the indigenous woodland culture, dating it firmly to a time long before any European explorers set foot on the continent. The stone itself is unassuming, but the inscription carved into its surface is anything but. To several researchers in the field of ancient scripts, the markings bear a striking resemblance to Paleo-Hebrew, an early form of the alphabet used in the ancient Near East. Some interpretations even suggest the letters spell out the phrase for Judah. This single artifact, if its inscription is genuine and ancient, throws a wrench into the conventional narrative of pre-Columbian America. The immediate, dramatic question it raises is one of presence. Could a group from the ancient Near East, perhaps traders or explorers, have somehow reached the heart of North America and interacted with the mound-building cultures? The idea sparks the imagination, suggesting a thread of connection even more ancient and unexpected than the Viking penny. Yet the Bat Creek Stone is shrouded in intense academic debate. Skeptics point to the possibility of a modern forgery, perhaps created in the 19th century when curiosity about lost tribes and mysterious origins was high. Others argue for a remarkable case of independent invention, where two cultures separated by an ocean and millennia developed strikingly similar symbols by pure chance. This stone does not offer easy answers, and that is precisely its value. It forces a rigorous conversation. It sits at a demanding intersection where archaeology must meet linguistics, and where folklore must be carefully separated from material evidence. Regardless of its ultimate origin, the Bat Creek stone compels us to scrutinize every possible pathway for how an idea, a symbol, or an entire writing system could travel across the ancient world. It reminds us that the story of human movement is full of complexities we are still unraveling, and that some of the most challenging puzzles are found not in grand monuments, but in the quiet, cryptic messages left on stone. A farmer's plow struck stone in the Minnesota soil, unearthing a narrative carved in Greywacke. The Kensington Runestone is a slab of history that refuses to be silent, its surface covered in runic letters telling a tale of Norse explorers far from home. The inscription, dated to the year 1362, speaks of a group traveling from Vinland to the west, a journey that ended in hardship and loss. It is a first-hand account, a ghost story from the wilderness, claiming a Scandinavian presence in the heart of North America over a century before Columbus. The stone's message is direct and haunting, a memorial to companions who did not return from a scouting trip, transforming a simple rock into a grave marker and a record of a failed expedition. The authenticity of this stone has been the center of a scholarly storm for generations. Most mainstream linguists and historians point to inconsistencies in the rune forms and grammar, arguing it is a clever creation from the late 19th century, a time when Scandinavian immigrants were deeply proud of their heritage and fascinated by the Viking sagas. They see it as a cultural artifact of a different kind, a reflection of the stories a community wished to tell about itself. Yet, defenders of the stone offer counter-evidence that cannot be easily dismissed. They point to the deep, weathered grooves of the carving, suggesting the inscription is far older than a century. They analyze linguistic nuances, arguing some runic forms align with medieval usage. This debate is not merely academic, it touches the very heart of how we validate the past. The Kensington Runestone, whether a medieval chronicle or a later homage, serves a powerful purpose. It embodies the timeless human drive to explore and to leave a mark, a message in a bottle meant for the future. It keeps alive the tantalizing possibility that the Norse ventured much deeper into the continent than a single coastal settlement. Even if it is not what it claims to be, the stone has become a real piece of history in its own right, a testament to the stories we weave around discovery and the enduring desire to find our own reflections in the ancient landscape. Buried in a New Hampshire lakebed, a perfectly shaped stone egg holds a language we cannot read. The Lake Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone is a masterclass in enigma, discovered by workers digging a post hole in 1872. Its form is deliberate, an egg meticulously shaped from a hard, unusual quartzite, smooth to an almost unnatural perfection. But it is the surface that truly captivates and confounds. Carved into the stone is a gallery of cryptic symbols, a silent story told through images, faces that seem to stare from another time, structures resembling teepees, arrows pointing to unknown destinations, and a celestial shape like a star or a sun. This is not random decoration. Every mark feels intentional, a deliberate code. Yet, despite over a century of study, no one has convincingly deciphered its message or placed it firmly within a known cultural tradition. It does not neatly match the artistic styles of the local indigenous peoples, nor does it clearly echo any specific Old World symbolism. It exists in a category of its own, a perfect artifact without a passport. The mystery deepens with the technical skill required to make it. The fine, symmetrical drilling visible at each end of the egg suggests the use of advanced, precise tools for its time, whoever its time may have been. This stone is more than a curiosity. It is a profound reminder of the limits of our historical understanding. It represents the possibility of a lost chapter, a community or a traveler whose technology and symbolic language have vanished from all other records. Perhaps it is the product of a unique cultural fusion, a local artist incorporating misunderstood motifs from a distant trader's tale. Or maybe it is a singular ritual object, its meaning so specific to a small group that it died with them. The Lake Winnipesaukee stone resists every attempt to file it away. It refuses to be evidence of a specific trade route or a documented contact. Instead, it stands as a monument to all the conversations, the technologies, and the ideas that flourished in the ancient world and then disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a single, beautiful, and utterly baffling egg of stone, waiting for a key we may never find. Deep in a Peruvian cave, a collection of stones tells a story too strange for our history books. The Ica Stones number in the thousands, each one a dark, polished river rock etched with intricate scenes that defy simple explanation. The images are startling and direct. They show human figures locked in combat with creatures we recognize immediately as dinosaurs, like Triceratops and Stegosaurus. Other stones depict what look like advanced surgical procedures, including heart transplants and cesarean sections, performed with precise tools. There are maps of unknown continents and detailed astronomical charts plotting stars with an accuracy that seems impossible for their alleged age. If authentic, these stones would be the most revolutionary archaeological discovery ever made, proving a lost civilization possessed knowledge that rivals our own. The overwhelming consensus from archaeologists and geologists, however, is that they are not. The evidence for a modern creation is compelling. The engravings show no signs of the natural weathering one would expect from stones buried for centuries, their lines appearing fresh and sharp. Crucially, there is no verified archaeological context. The story of their discovery is murky, tied to a local farmer whose account changed over time, and no reputable scientific excavation has ever recovered one from a documented, undisturbed layer of soil. Most experts conclude they were likely crafted in the mid-20th century, a period of booming interest in ancient astronauts and lost worlds. Yet, despite the scientific dismissal, the stones persist powerfully in popular culture. They are championed as proof of everything from time travel to intervention by extraterrestrial beings. A tangible artifact for those who believe our past is far more mysterious than textbooks allow. This is where their true value lies, not as evidence of dinosaurs and humans coexisting, but as a perfect case study in the human relationship with the past. The Ica Stones teach us a critical lesson about provenance, the documented history of an object from its discovery to the present day. Without that clear chain of custody, even the most spectacular artifact remains in the realm of story, not science. They highlight the tension between our desire for a magical, unknown history and the meticulous, often slow-moving process of archaeological verification. In the end, these stones are a mirror. They reflect our own hopes and our hunger for mysteries that rewrite everything we think we know, reminding us that sometimes the most fascinating artifact is not the one that reveals a hidden truth, but the one that reveals so much about us, the seekers. A mechanical heart was found beating inside a stone. In 1961, 3 friends searching for geodes near Olancha, California, cracked open what they thought was a promising lump of rock. Inside the hardened shell, they did not find the expected crystal cavity, but something far more perplexing, a ceramic cylinder surrounding a metal core, all held within a hexagonal casing of rust-colored material. It looked for all the world like a 20th century spark plug, a small piece of industrial technology, yet the outer layer was identified as a geode, a mineral formation that typically takes immense spans of time to develop. The claim was staggering that this mechanical object was encased in a stone 500,000 years old. The implications were explosive, suggesting a civilization with advanced engineering in a time when early humans were just beginning to use simple stone tools. The Coso Artifact, as it became known, quickly became a cornerstone for stories of ancient astronauts or a lost, technologically advanced human culture. It seemed to be the ultimate out-of-place artifact, a pristine anachronism. The romance of that idea is powerful, a tiny machine whispering of a forgotten age of wonder. But science often provides more grounded, though no less fascinating, explanations. Upon closer geological examination, the story changed. Skeptics, including professional geologists, pointed out that the outer crust was not a true, slow-forming geode, but a type of ironstone concretion. These can form relatively quickly, especially around a man-made object, as mineral-rich water deposits layers of hard mud and iron oxide. The object inside was almost certainly a champion spark plug from the early 1920s, a common part for the Model T Ford. The most likely scenario is not one of deep time, but of recent history. A spark plug was lost or discarded in the dry California landscape. Over just a few decades, mineral-laden waters cemented layers of sediment around it, creating a hardened shell that mimicked the appearance of great age. The lesson of the Coso Artifact is not one of disappointment, but of critical thinking. It underscores a vital principle in the study of out-of-place objects, the necessity of separating the initial wonder from rigorous analysis. It reminds us that nature is a masterful sculptor, capable of creating forms that look deliberately designed. This artifact does not prove ancient astronauts, but it does prove how easily our eyes can be tricked by the marriage of a modern object and natural processes. It teaches us to temper our excitement with patience, to seek the geological story as eagerly as the historical one, because sometimes the truth of an object is not when it was made, but how it came to wear such a convincing disguise. A simple clay jar might hold the spark of ancient ingenuity. Found in the outskirts of Baghdad, this unassuming artifact is a puzzle of 3 parts: a ceramic pot, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod. When assembled, it bears an uncanny resemblance to a basic battery, a galvanic cell capable of generating a small electric charge. Dating from the Parthian or Sasanian era, roughly 250 years before the Common Era to 650 after, this object predates the formal discovery of electricity by over a millennium. The principle is straightforward. If the jar were filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or lemon juice, the electrolyte would create a chemical reaction between the dissimilar metals, producing a modest but measurable voltage. This is not speculation. Modern replicas have proven it works. So what was this ancient battery used for? The most tantalizing theory points to electroplating, the process of using electricity to bond a thin layer of a precious metal, like gold, onto the surface of a less valuable object, such as silver. Artisans of the time were masters of gilding, and a small, consistent electrical current could have provided a novel method for achieving those stunning effects. Other scholars propose a ritualistic purpose. Perhaps the gentle tingle of the current was used in temple ceremonies, a tangible sensation of divine power for those who held it. A more mundane explanation suggests it was simply a secure storage vessel for sacred scrolls, with the metal components having a different, non-electrical significance. The true answer may be lost, but the artifact's existence is a profound statement. It demonstrates that the fundamental principles of electrochemistry were not just observed, but potentially harnessed in the ancient world. This was not a technology born of industrial revolution, but of quiet, empirical curiosity. It suggests a lineage of experimentation completely separate from the path that led to our modern grid. The Baghdad Battery does not rewrite history with a flash of lightning, but with a low, steady hum of possibility. It asks us to reconsider the innovative spirit of these cultures, to see them not just as traders of spices and silks, but as potential traders in ideas about the very forces of nature. This small clay pot is a vessel for a much larger concept. That ancient understanding of the physical world may have had currents running through it we are only now beginning to detect. The seafloor held a secret more complex than any sunken treasure. In 1901, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon a Roman-era shipwreck, a time capsule from the 1st century before the Common Era. Among the statues and amphorae, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed unremarkable. Decades later, when the crust was carefully removed, the world saw the truth, a labyrinth of precisely machined bronze gears, dials, and inscriptions. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced it redefined our understanding of ancient science. Dating to the 2nd century before the Common Era, it is not merely an artifact, it is an ancient analog computer. Its intricate gear trains, some with teeth cut at precise angles, could model the complex motions of the heavens. By turning a hand crank, an operator could predict the positions of the sun and moon, forecast lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic and other Panhellenic Games. It was a portable cosmos, a mechanical expression of Greek astronomical knowledge built to fit inside a wooden box. The mechanism's existence is a thunderclap in the quiet narrative of technological history. It represents a pinnacle of Hellenistic engineering that simply should not exist according to a linear view of progress. This was not a prototype, but a sophisticated, miniaturized device implying a long prior tradition of gearwork and precise metal casting that has otherwise vanished from the archaeological record. Its discovery tells us that a peak of technological achievement was reached, and then that knowledge was lost for over a millennium. But the mechanism also speaks directly to our theme of connection. This astonishing device was not found in a philosopher's academy in Athens. It was recovered from a Roman cargo ship traveling across the Mediterranean. This context is everything. It means this pinnacle of Greek science was a commodity, an object of immense value being transported, likely to a wealthy Roman patron or a scholarly center. The mechanism itself is physical proof of a network, a web of trade in ideas and luxury goods that carried not just spices and silks, but the very cutting edge of scientific thought. The ship was a courier for genius, and its sinking preserved a secret that would take 2,000 years to decode. It stands as a humbling monument, reminding us that ancient networks transmitted more than material wealth. They carried the blueprints for understanding the universe itself, and that such profound knowledge could travel and, tragically, could also be lost beneath the waves. The gears of the Antikythera Mechanism represent a pinnacle of knowledge, but across the Atlantic, a different kind of evidence was being unearthed, one of settlement and daily life. On the windswept northern tip of Newfoundland, at a place called Elance Ox Meadows, archaeologists uncovered something far more substantial than a single coin or a cryptic stone. They found the ghost of a village, the tangible proof of a story long told in Norse sagas. This is not a solitary artifact, but an entire collection of objects that together form an undeniable signature. Among the remains of sod-walled buildings, researchers discovered iron nails, a bronze cloak pin, and the unmistakable evidence of a hearth used for smelting iron from local bog ore. These items, simple and functional, are revolutionary in their context. To the indigenous peoples of that region at that time, these materials and the technology to work them were completely unknown. Iron smelting was a European practice, a skill carried across the ocean in the minds and hands of Norse settlers. Each nail, each slag fragment, is a definitive out-of-place object, a piece of technological vocabulary spoken in a land where that language had never been heard. This site moves us from speculation to confirmation. The Maine penny suggested contact, but Elance Ox Meadows proves habitation, however brief. It shows us that the Vikings did not just sight the coast of North America. They stepped ashore, built shelters, repaired their ships, and attempted to forge a new life from an unfamiliar landscape. The settlement tells a story of resilience and adaptation, but also of ultimate departure. The sagas speak of conflict and hardship, and the archaeological record suggests the stay was not long, perhaps a decade or two. Yet in that short window, a full technological package was transplanted across the sea. This evidence forces us to see the Viking voyages not as mere exploration, but as a deliberate transfer of culture and capability. The site stands as a quiet, powerful rebuttal to any notion of a pre-Columbian world walled off from the east. It is a place where history became geography, where legend took root in the soil, leaving behind the humble, durable evidence that our ancestors' horizons were far wider than the maps they left behind. Massive stones rest silently on the Pacific floor, their shape a familiar echo across the ocean. Off the coast of California, fishermen and researchers have recovered large, donut-shaped artifacts, rings of stone with a central hole weighing hundreds of pounds. To some, these are not mere geological oddities. They bear a striking resemblance to ancient Chinese stone anchors, a technology used for centuries in Asian seafaring. These anchors, known as shimao, were simple yet effective, their heavy weight and hole for a rope serving to hold junk steady in coastal waters. The discovery of such stones in American waters ignites a powerful hypothesis. Could they be the lost moorings of a pre-Columbian Chinese fleet, perhaps even the legendary treasure ships of Admiral Zheng He from the early 15th century? This idea suggests a deliberate, organized expedition from Ming Dynasty China reaching the New World decades before Columbus. The image is compelling, a fleet of majestic junks appearing off the California coast, their crews lowering these very stones into the water. Proponents see them as undeniable physical proof, a signature left in stone on the continental shelf. Yet the deep blue sea is a place of layered histories, and mainstream archaeology urges caution. Skeptics point to alternative explanations that are far more recent. Chinese fishing communities were active off the California coast in the 19th century, and such stones could easily be discarded gear from those operations. Furthermore, natural geological processes can sometimes create stone rings that mimic human craftsmanship. Without a secure archaeological context, like a datable shipwreck associated with the stones, they remain intriguing but ambiguous. This debate is a masterclass in interpretation. It highlights the immense challenge of reading history from objects found in the dynamic, racing environment of the ocean. The stones themselves do not speak of their origin or age. They hold their silence, allowing our hopes and our skepticism to project stories upon them. Their true power may not lie in proving a specific voyage, but in embodying the enduring human fascination with the possibility of such a journey. They represent the tantalizing gap between what we can prove and what we feel might be true, a reminder that the Pacific, vast and formidable, may still hold secrets about who crossed it and when. A different kind of clay collection emerged from the dry earth of Mexico, telling a story that seemed to leap from a child's imagination. In the 1940s, a German immigrant named Waldemar Jolsrud claimed to have discovered thousands of small ceramic figurines near the town of Acámbaro. The figures themselves are lively and detailed, depicting everyday scenes of people dancing, fishing, and farming. But scattered among these ordinary human figures are creatures that stop you cold. They are unmistakable, with long necks, spiked backs, and powerful tails, bearing a startling resemblance to dinosaurs like Brachiosaurus and Stegosaurus. Other figures look like animals from distant continents, such as camels or gorillas, creatures not native to the Americas. The immediate implication is as dramatic as it is simple, that an ancient culture in Mexico coexisted with, and carefully modeled, animals that science tells us died out millions of years before humans walked the earth. It is a narrative of a lost world captured in clay. The scientific community, however, has reached a near-unanimous verdict on the Acámbaro figurines. Archaeologists point to the figurine's surfaces, which show no signs of the patina or mineral deposits one would expect from objects buried for centuries. The clay itself was found to be unfired and remarkably soft, suggesting they were made recently and had not undergone the chemical changes of long-term burial. Most damning is the complete lack of archaeological context. No credible, professionally supervised excavation has ever uncovered one of these figures in a sealed, datable layer of soil alongside other verified artifacts from a specific period. The story of their discovery, told by a single individual with no archaeological training, does not meet the rigorous standards required to rewrite history. So what are we to make of these compelling yet condemned objects? Like the Ica Stones, the Acámbaro figurines serve as a powerful case study, not in ancient contact but in modern desire. They illustrate how a passionate belief in a radical past, whether it involves surviving dinosaurs or transoceanic contact in deep antiquity, can sometimes generate its own evidence. In a world hungry for mysteries that overturn established knowledge, artifacts can be created to fill that need, consciously or not. This does not diminish their intrigue, but redirects it. The true lesson of Acámbaro is one of disciplined curiosity. It reminds us that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence, and that evidence must be rooted in verifiable context, not just in the captivating power of the object itself. These figurines challenge us to be vigilant readers of history, to appreciate the story an object tells while relentlessly questioning the story of how it came to be found. A map drawn in Constantinople holds a coastline that should not exist. In 1513, Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis created a stunningly detailed world map, a fragment of which survives today. Its depiction of the Atlantic Ocean and the coasts of Europe, Africa, and South America is remarkable for its era, but one feature has ignited a century of debate. The southernmost landmass on the fragment appears to show a coastline that, to some researchers, resembles Queen Maud Land in Antarctica, a continent that would not be officially discovered for another 300 years and is depicted curiously free of its massive ice cap. This interpretation is fiercely contested, with many scholars arguing the land is a speculative or distorted version of South America's southern tip. Yet the true power of the Piri Reis map lies not in a single controversial coastline, but in its own explanatory notes. The admiral wrote that he compiled this map from 20 different source charts, including ancient Greek maps from the time of Alexander the Great, contemporary Portuguese Portolan charts, and even a map allegedly drawn by Christopher Columbus himself. This is the map's real secret. It is not a singular vision, but a collage of global knowledge. Think of it as a 15th century database, a synthesis of geographical information gathered from sailors who had traversed the Mediterranean, rounded the Cape of Africa, and crossed the Atlantic. It is a physical artifact of that interconnected network in action, where a Turkish admiral in Istanbul could access Portuguese sailing logs, Arab astronomical guides, and perhaps fragments of charts from antiquity, weaving them together into a single, ambitious picture of the world. The Piri Reis map challenges the idea of isolated discovery. It suggests that geographical knowledge was a cumulative, traded commodity, passed from hand to hand and culture to culture across seas and centuries. Whether it truly shows Antarctica is almost secondary. Its enduring message is that the world was being pieced together long before any one explorer claimed to see it whole, a patchwork quilt of intelligence stitched together by the threads of ancient trade. The walls of an Egyptian temple hold a carving that seems to flicker with an impossible light. In the crypt of the Hathor temple at Dendera, a series of intricate reliefs tell stories of gods and cosmic power. One panel in particular has captured the modern imagination like few others. It depicts a large, elongated object reminiscent of a glass bulb, inside of which rests a snake in a wavy line. This serpent is held in place by a pillar with a figure standing beside it, as if in an act of presentation or support. To a contemporary eye conditioned by the symbols of our own age, the resemblance to a primitive light bulb is startling. The snake becomes a glowing filament, the pillar a supporting socket, and the entire scene a record of ancient electrical illumination. This interpretation, known widely as the Dendera light, has fueled countless stories of lost technology, suggesting the Egyptians possessed knowledge far beyond what mainstream history allows. It is a powerful testament to how our own modern lens can reshape the artifacts of the past, projecting our own technological wonders onto their sacred symbols. Yet, to understand this artifact is to step away from that projection and into the worldview of its creators. Egyptologists provide a compelling and context-rich explanation. They identify the object not as a bulb, but as a lotus flower, a plant of profound spiritual significance in Egyptian mythology, emerging from the primordial waters. The snake within it is the deity Harsomptus, a manifestation of the sun god, being born from the lotus at the moment of creation. The pillar is a Jade pillar, a symbol of stability and the backbone of the god Osiris. The entire tableau is not an instruction manual, but a theological diagram depicting the moment a god emerges to bring light and order to the universe. This distinction is crucial. It does not diminish the carving's power, but redirects it. The Dendera relief speaks to a universal human drive, not to build a light bulb, but to understand and represent the source of illumination itself. For the ancient Egyptians, that ultimate light was divine, born from a flower and a serpent in a mythic act of creation. For us, it is the cool glow of tungsten and glass. The artifact becomes a bridge between these two understandings of light. It reminds us that every culture seeks to depict the forces that drive their world, whether through the language of myth or the blueprint of engineering. The enduring fascination with the Dendera light reveals less about ancient Egyptians and more about our own desire to find echoes of our modernity in their majesty, a longing to see our own reflection in the polished stone of their temples. Hundreds of stone orbs rest in the jungles and river deltas of Costa Rica, as if giants left behind a game of marbles. These are the stone spheres of the Dikwis culture, carved from hard gabbro rock between 300 and 1500 years ago. Their sizes are staggering, from the size of a grapefruit to colossal spheres over 2 meters across, weighing more than 15 tons, but it is their shape that truly defies belief. They are not roughly round, but near-perfect spheres, their surfaces smooth to an almost unnatural geometry that speaks of profound skill and intention. These objects are not out of place geographically, they belong exactly where they are found, a testament to the ingenuity of the people who made them. Yet their very perfection places them in a different kind of mystery, one that echoes our broader theme of ancient networks. The first and most pressing question is how. How did a culture without metal tools, using only stone hammers and abrasives, achieve such mathematical precision on such a monumental scale? The answer lies in a masterful understanding of stone itself. Artisans likely selected large boulders, painstakingly pecking them into a rough spherical shape before grinding them for months or even years with sand and water, using smaller stones as sandpaper, constantly checking their progress against a mental ideal of the perfect form. This was not a quick process, but a generational project, an investment of community labor and artistic vision that we can scarcely comprehend today. But the greater mystery is why. What purpose did these colossal spheres serve? Were they astronomical markers aligned to track the solstices or important stars, turning the landscape into a giant celestial calendar? Could they have been symbols of power, territorial markers for chiefdoms, their size and number proclaiming the status and reach of a local ruler? Some theories even suggest they represented celestial bodies, physical models of the sun, moon, or planets, giving tangible form to a cosmic order. The truth is, we may never know their original meaning for certain. and that is precisely their power in our story of ancient connection. Imagine a trader from a distant culture, perhaps from the highlands of Mesoamerica or arriving by sea, encountering these spheres for the first time. They would have seen not just stones, but a demonstration of impossible skill, a technological and artistic achievement that demanded respect and curiosity. In a world where rare and wondrous objects traveled vast distances, these spheres could have become legendary items themselves. While likely too heavy to trade in their largest forms, smaller versions or even the knowledge of their existence could have traveled along those hidden information highways. They stand as a brilliant reminder that advanced concepts did not need a single point of origin. The drive to create the perfect form, to imprint human order onto the chaos of nature, could arise independently in the jungles of Central America just as it did elsewhere. The spheres tell us that unique local genius could produce objects so extraordinary that their very fame might ripple outward, becoming part of the wider tapestry of wonders that connected the ancient world through stories of what other hands in other lands could achieve. Carved into the stone ceiling of a sacred Egyptian temple is a shape that seems to defy its own time. In the Temple of Seti I at Abydos, among the traditional depictions of gods and pharaohs, a cluster of hieroglyphs appears to show something startlingly modern. To a contemporary viewer, the overlapping lines and curves unmistakably suggest the silhouette of a helicopter, complete with what looks like a rotor blade. Nearby, other merged forms bring to mind a submarine, a futuristic aircraft, and even a tank. It is an image that has fueled endless speculation about ancient astronauts or lost high technology, a single carving seemingly offering proof that the past knew our future. The truth of the Abydos relief, however, is not found in time travel, but in the slow, layered work of human hands across centuries. Egyptologists point to a common and well-understood practice in ancient monument building known as a palimpsest. This occurs when a carved surface is updated or corrected. In this case, the original hieroglyphs praising Seti I were later plastered over and recarved by his son, Ramesses II, to emphasize his own legacy. Over millennia, the plaster filler crumbled away, leaving behind a ghostly composite, a fusion of two separate inscriptions carved at different times. The helicopter is not a deliberate image, but an accidental collage, the elegant lines of a royal epithet from one era merging with the symbols of a divine title from another. This creates a perfect storm for our pattern-seeking brains, a phenomenon called pareidolia, where we instinctively find familiar shapes in random visual noise. We see a helicopter not because the ancient Egyptians envisioned one, but because our modern minds are saturated with those forms. We are primed to recognize them, and so we do, even where they were never intended. This artifact is perhaps one of the most important lessons in our entire exploration. It serves as a vital caution, a reminder of the responsibility we carry when interpreting the silent messages of the past. It warns us against the temptation to lift an image out of its immense cultural and technical context, to strip it of its history and project our own world onto it. The real story of the Abydos carving is not about advanced machinery, but about the human practices of commemoration, revision, and the inevitable, beautiful decay that time brings. It teaches us that sometimes the greatest mystery is not what an artifact shows, but how we choose to see it, and that true understanding requires us to listen first to the context before we hear the echo of our own ideas. A book exists that no one on earth can read. The Voynich Manuscript is a small volume of about 240 pages, written on fine vellum that carbon dating places firmly in the early 15th century. Its physical reality is undeniable, a product of medieval European craftsmanship, yet from that moment of confirmation, every other certainty vanishes. The text is composed in an elegant but utterly unknown script, flowing from left to right in a hand that suggests a practiced scribe. It is not gibberish, it follows distinct linguistic patterns, with words and sentence structures that imply a real, complex language. But it is a language without a key, a code without a cipher. For over a century, the world's top cryptographers, linguists, and historians, including teams who broke Nazi codes during the World Wars, have applied every tool of modern analysis. They have found no Rosetta Stone, no parallel text to offer a foothold. The manuscript resists every attempt, standing as a monument to unreadability. Its illustrations deepen the mystery. They depict a world both familiar and profoundly alien. There are pages of plants that seem to twist and bloom in impossible ways, botanical specimens that match no known species on Earth. Astronomical sections show celestial diagrams with unfamiliar constellations and strange, layered circles representing cosmic systems. Perhaps most intriguing are the so-called biological sections, featuring intricate drawings of small, nude female figures bathing in or connected to a network of green, tube-like structures, suggesting some unknown anatomical or alchemical process. The manuscript is a gallery of encyclopedic knowledge for a world that does not exist. So what is it? The theories are as varied as they are compelling. Some scholars argue it is an elaborate, centuries-old hoax, crafted to fetch a high price from a gullible Renaissance noble fascinated by the exotic. Yet the statistical properties of the text suggest it is simply too structured, too complex, to be a meaningless fabrication. Others believe it is written in a constructed language, an early artificial code meant to conceal profound secrets, perhaps of herbal medicine or proto-scientific alchemy. The most tantalizing idea is that it records a genuine, now extinct vernacular, a language and its accompanying body of knowledge that was lost when its culture vanished, leaving this single, beautiful artifact as its last testament. In the context of ancient trade and connection, the Voynich Manuscript represents a different kind of out-of-place artifact. It is not out of place geographically, but intellectually. It is a document that slipped through the net of history's memory, a cargo of ideas that arrived in our time but whose shipping manifest was lost. It showcases the limits of our understanding of medieval intellectual exchange, reminding us that the networks of the past carried more than goods. They carried entire systems of thought that could, under the right circumstances, vanish without a trace. This book is a locked door in the library of human knowledge, and its very existence is a quiet, persistent challenge, asking us how much we have truly forgotten about the curious, secretive, and brilliantly inventive minds of those who came before. A wooden bird from an Egyptian tomb seems to hold the shape of flight itself, discovered at Saqqara and dating to around 200 years before the Common Era. This small artifact is beautifully carved, a graceful form that at first glance fits perfectly among other funerary models of animals and boats. Yet a closer look reveals subtle details that have sparked a century of debate. Unlike a naturalistic bird, its wings are perfectly straight and rigid, its body streamlined, and it features a distinct, separate vertical tail fin, a structure not found on any bird in nature. To the modern eye, conditioned by a century of aviation, the silhouette is uncanny. It looks less like a falcon or dove, and more like the profile of a modern glider or a simple aircraft model. This resemblance has led some researchers and enthusiasts to propose a breathtaking idea that the Saqqara bird is not a toy or a mere symbol, but a scale model representing ancient Egyptian knowledge of aerodynamic principles. Could it be a blueprint for something larger, a testament to early experiments with flight that history forgot? The mainstream archaeological interpretation offers a more grounded, though no less fascinating, perspective. Most Egyptologists see it as a stylized representation of a bird of prey, perhaps a falcon associated with the god Horus. Its simplified features a result of artistic convention and the limitations of the wood medium. It might have been a child's toy, a sacred offering, or a symbolic companion for the journey to the afterlife. The vertical tail in this view could simply be a stylized bird's tail or a support stand. This divide in interpretation makes the Saqqara bird a perfect case study in how we see the past. Our understanding is always filtered through the lens of our own time, our own technology, and our own desires. When we look at this artifact, we cannot help but see the shadow of an airplane because that is the dominant symbol of flight in our world. The ancient Egyptian craftsman, however, was observing the same sky but through a different cultural lens, one filled with divine symbolism where a bird could represent a god's power, a soul's freedom, or a celestial messenger. The artifact's true power may lie precisely in this tension. Even if it is a stylized bird, its form demonstrates an incredibly keen observation of nature. To abstract a living creature into such a clean, efficient shape requires deep study of how wings cut through air, how bodies are balanced for motion. This intuitive grasp of form and function is a kind of knowledge in itself, a precursor to the engineering principles that would much later be codified into science. The Saqqara bird ultimately asks us a profound question about the nature of innovation. Must the path to discovery be a straight, documented line, or can the seed of an idea, the intuition of a principle, exist in an artistic form long before it is built in metal and tested in wind tunnels? This small wooden object does not need to be a model aircraft to be revolutionary. It is a testament to the human mind's timeless urge to capture the essence of flight, whether for spiritual, playful, or practical reasons, reminding us that the dream of soaring is one of our oldest and most shared aspirations. The dream of flight is a universal one, but the drive to record our thoughts is perhaps even more fundamental. On one of the most remote islands on Earth, that drive produced a mystery carved in wood. Easter Island, known for its towering stone moai, holds another secret just as profound, the Rongorongo Script. This system of intricate glyphs, etched onto wooden tablets and staffs, is a true anomaly. It is a fully formed writing system that appears as if from nowhere on an island over 2,000 miles from the nearest continent. There are no simple pictographs here, no tentative first steps toward written language. Rongorongo is complex and standardized, with hundreds of distinct, elegant glyphs arranged in a consistent order, often in alternating lines that read left to right, then right to left. This is not a casual notation, it is the product of a sophisticated intellectual tradition. Yet, on this tiny, isolated speck of land, there is no archaeological evidence of its gradual development, no earlier, cruder versions from which it evolved. It simply exists, a complete and eloquent silence. The isolation of Easter Island makes this puzzle almost unbearable. How could such an advanced system arise in total seclusion? Some researchers, looking for connections across impossible distances, have pointed to faint, superficial resemblances between certain Rongorongo glyphs and symbols from the ancient Indus Valley script, or even to markings found in ancient China. These visual echoes are tantalizing but inconclusive, like hearing a familiar word in a language you do not understand. They raise the remote, staggering possibility of a long-forgotten contact, a moment when seafarers from a literate culture, perhaps blown wildly off course, reached the island and planted the seed of the written word. This seed could have then taken root in the unique soil of Polynesian culture, growing over generations into the Rongorongo we see today. The alternative is equally mind-bending, that the concept of writing was invented independently, not once or twice in the great centers of civilization, but here, on this lonely island in the vast Pacific. Both explanations challenge our understanding of cultural innovation. If it was inspired by contact, it reveals a network of voyaging that reached further than we ever documented. If it was an independent creation, it speaks to the incredible, universal human capacity for symbolic thought, a capacity that could flower in even the most isolated garden. The tragedy is that we cannot ask the tablets what they say. The script remains undeciphered, its knowledge locked away. The last traditional practitioners were lost to the hardships of the 19th century, and with them the key to their history, their prayers, and their view of the cosmos. Today, the Rongorongo tablets are more than artifacts. They are monuments to the fragility of human memory. They stand as a quiet, powerful reminder that brilliant ideas can emerge in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the most profound connections are those we can see but can no longer hear. From high above the Peruvian desert, a hummingbird the size of a jetliner stretches its wings across the earth. This is the realm of the Nazca Lines, a gallery of monumental art drawn not on canvas, but on the very skin of the planet. Created by the Nazca culture over a 1,000-year span, these geoglyphs are a breathtaking paradox. From the ground, they appear as shallow grooves in the dark desert pavement, paths leading nowhere. But ascend to the sky, and the truth reveals itself: vast, precise images of a spider, a monkey, a condor, and intricate geometric shapes stretching for miles. Their sheer scale poses the central mystery, for they were made by people who, as far as we know, never flew. So who were these colossal drawings for? The most widely accepted explanations are rooted deeply in the spiritual and practical world of the Nazca. Researchers see them as sacred pathways, walked during rituals to invoke deities, particularly those associated with the most precious resource in that arid landscape: water. The lines may have functioned as a giant astronomical calendar, their alignments marking the solstices and the movements of stars to guide agricultural cycles. They were a form of communication, but with the heavens, not with human pilots. This perspective grounds the lines in the brilliant, coordinated effort of a sophisticated culture capable of organizing large-scale projects and possessing precise knowledge of geometry and astronomy. Yet, the form of the art inevitably sparks wonder about its audience. The fact that the full glory of a 250-meter-long monkey is only visible from hundreds of feet in the air has, for decades, fueled more speculative ideas. Could the Nazca have had some form of primitive balloon or kite technology to view their work? Or do the lines suggest a belief in, or even an attempt to communicate with, sky-bound beings? While mainstream archaeology finds no evidence for ancient flight in the region, this line of questioning touches on a profound theme of our exploration. The Nazca Lines, whether intended for gods, ancestors, or celestial bodies, were a message inscribed on a continental scale. In a world connected by the slow trade of stories and knowledge, imagine the tales that might have traveled. A trader from the high Andes or a sailor up the coast might have heard whispers of a people in the southern desert who drew pictures for the sky itself. That story of a land art so vast it could only be seen by the heavens becomes a different kind of trade good, an intellectual artifact that speaks of human ambition and our eternal desire to make a mark that transcends our own perspective. The lines remind us that ancient monumentality was often a dialogue with the cosmos, a way of anchoring human culture within the grand, visible order of the universe, and that the fame of such an achievement could ripple across networks we are still learning to map. A story emerged from a remote Chinese mountain range that seemed to leap from the pages of a science fiction novel. In 1938, an archaeologist is said to have entered a cave in the Bayan Karaula Mountains and discovered a series of perfectly circular stone discs, each with a small hole in its center and a fine, spiraling groove that upon closer inspection revealed itself to be a line of tiny, unknown hieroglyphics. The narrative that followed was extraordinary. The inscriptions, when eventually translated, allegedly told the saga of the Dropa, a peaceful race of beings from a distant star whose spacecraft crashed in the mountains long ago, stranding them on Earth. The stones were their recorded history, a plea for understanding left behind. It is a compelling tale of ancient contact, of cosmic loneliness etched in stone. Yet, in the entire world of professional archaeology and historical research, you will find no scholar who accepts the Dropa stones as genuine. The reason is stark and simple. The stones themselves have never been subjected to credible, peer-reviewed examination. No museum holds them, no independent laboratory has tested their composition or carving methods, and the chain of custody for the objects is a labyrinth of unverifiable claims and missing persons. The entire narrative, from the initial discovery to the dramatic translations, exists only in sensational magazine articles and books, aligning perfectly with the flying saucer and ancient astronaut tropes that captivated the public imagination in the mid-20th century. This does not make the story a deliberate lie, but it firmly places it in the category of modern mythology. The Dropa stones serve a different yet vital purpose in our understanding of the past. They are a powerful case study in how our deepest desires can shape the stories we tell about history. When we long for evidence of otherworldly visitors or lost advanced civilizations, that longing can sometimes fill in the blanks of a murky discovery, creating a complete and thrilling narrative where only fragments exist. The stones highlight the critical distinction between an archaeological mystery and an archaeological myth. A mystery, like the Voynich Manuscript or the purpose of the Nazca Lines, is built on a physical artifact with verifiable age and context that simply challenges our interpretation. A myth often lacks that tangible, scrutinizable foundation. The lesson here is not one of cynicism, but of disciplined curiosity. It reminds us that the most thrilling chapters of history are written not in speculation, but in the patient, collaborative work of verification, where evidence is tested, context is king, and extraordinary claims are met with a demand for equally extraordinary proof. The enduring fascination with the Dropa stones ultimately tells us more about ourselves than about any ancient astronauts, revealing our timeless hope that the universe is not empty and that our planet's story might be part of a grander cosmic conversation. Beneath the clear blue waters off Japan's southernmost island, a silent city sleeps. The Yonaguni Monument is a sprawling complex of stone, resting just below the waves, its flat terraces and sharp angles a stark contrast to the soft curves of the ocean floor. Discovered by a diver in the 1980s, it presents a riddle carved not in a portable object, but in the very bedrock of the continent. Its features are startlingly architectural, massive platforms that look like sunken plazas, straight walls meeting at near-perfect 90-degree angles, and what appear to be wide, ceremonial steps leading to nowhere. There are even pillar-like structures and a distinct triangular formation that many observers immediately call a monolith. From the moment it was found, the monument forced a single, monumental question onto the world of archaeology. Is this the work of human hands, or is it a masterpiece of natural geology? The debate that followed split experts into two distinct camps. Geologists point to the powerful forces at play in this region. The sandstone that forms the monument is prone to fracturing along straight lines due to tectonic stresses. Relentless tidal currents, they argue, could have eroded the stone into these seemingly flat plains and stepped formations over hundreds of thousands of years. A slow, patient sculptor using water and movement instead of tools. They see a spectacular but entirely natural wonder. On the other side, some archaeologists and researchers look at the sheer accumulation of geometric forms and see intention. They note the presence of what look like tool marks on certain surfaces and the way multiple structures seem to align with one another in a way that feels planned. Their hypothesis is breathtaking. If even partially artificial, the Yonaguni Monument could be the remnant of a previously unknown maritime culture, a people capable of large-scale stonework who lived over 10,000 years ago when sea levels were much lower and this area was dry land. This time frame is crucial, placing its potential construction in a period of prehistory about which we know very little, a time when the coastlines of our world looked entirely different. The monument, therefore, represents the ultimate frontier of this search for ancient connection, the realm of underwater archaeology. It exists in that blurred, tantalizing space where the line between a natural wonder and a human artifact is at its thinnest. It forces us to confront the vast, hidden chapter of human history that now lies submerged. As the glaciers of the last ice age melted, sea levels rose dramatically, swallowing thousands of miles of coastline where early civilizations may have thrived. Their settlements, their ports, their very trade routes would have vanished beneath the waves, leaving only the most durable stone structures as clues. The Yonaguni Monument stands as a potential sentinel from that lost world, a silent, sunken witness to the possibility that some of the most important networks of exchange and culture are not buried in desert sands, but are resting on the continental shelves, waiting for us to learn how to read their waterlogged stories. It reminds us that the map of the ancient human journey is still being drawn, and some of its most significant landmarks may be hidden in the last place we thought to look, beneath the gentle, obscuring blanket of the sea. The scattered pieces of our journey begin to form a startling new picture. We have examined artifacts dismissed as hoaxes and others that stand as stubborn, verified facts, and while each tells its own story, together they whisper a single, transformative truth. The ancient world was not a collection of isolated lanterns glowing in separate darkness. It was a constellation, its points connected by threads of curiosity, ambition, and trade so fine we are only now beginning to trace their paths. This is the profound synthesis these objects offer, a challenge to the very framework of a disconnected past. It is not that every single artifact proves a direct voyage from Rome to Mexico or China to Peru. The real story is more subtle and far more interesting. It is a story of networks. Think of a precious stone, a Roman coin, or a bolt of Chinese silk not traveling in one epic, documented journey, but moving like a whisper in a long game of telephone. It passes from a Mediterranean merchant to a caravan master on the Silk Road, then to a Siberian trader, across a land bridge to a middleman in a vast continental exchange system, and finally to a shaman or chief who valued its distant, mysterious origin. The object itself is the final, silent witness to 100 forgotten handshakes, 1,000 miles of travel we never recorded. This view does not require super technology or ancient astronauts. It requires us to accept the boundless scale of human patience and the powerful engine of desire. A king wants a symbol of power no other king possesses. A priest seeks a material that feels touched by the divine. This demand creates a market, and where there is a market, there will always be suppliers willing to traverse deserts, mountains, and seas to meet it. These were the original globalizers, not nations or corporations, but individuals and small groups linking distant worlds through the sheer force of enterprise. What emerges is a celebration of innate human ingenuity. The Viking who navigated the North Atlantic, the Polynesian who found Easter Island, the Silk Road merchant who learned a dozen languages. These were the engineers of the first World Wide Web, a physical network of trust and exchange. Their achievements show that globalization is not a modern invention born of steam and steel, but a recurring theme in the human story. Our ancestors were connecting, trading, and sharing ideas for millennia, building a foundation of intercultural contact upon which our modern world ultimately rests. Each artifact we have explored, from the Maine penny to the stone spheres of Costa Rica, is a node in that vast, ancient network. They are not merely curiosities, but waypoints on a map we are still drawing, reminders that the human drive to reach beyond the horizon and touch another world is perhaps our oldest and most defining tradition. These objects are not puzzles to be solved once and for all, but invitations to a perpetual conversation. They ask us to hold two powerful ideas in balance at the same time. The first is an open-minded curiosity, a willingness to look at a Roman head in Mexico or Olmec jade in China and ask the daring question, what if? This curiosity is the engine of discovery, the force that drives us to dig deeper, to look closer, and to challenge the comfortable maps of the past. Yet hand in hand with that wonder must walk a disciplined skepticism. This is the commitment to evidence, to context, to the slow, meticulous work of verification that separates a compelling story from a historical fact. The Maine penny is powerful because it meets that rigorous standard. The Ica Stones fade from view because they do not. This balance is not a compromise, but the very heart of how we learn. It means celebrating the mystery of the Voynich Manuscript while acknowledging we may never crack its code. It allows us to be captivated by the Yonaguni formations while honestly weighing the natural forces that shaped them. This dynamic tension is what makes archaeology a living science, not a dusty catalogue of settled facts. Every out-of-place artifact, whether ultimately verified or explained away, serves a vital purpose. It prods the boundaries of our knowledge. It forces experts to re-examine assumptions, to test new methods, and to engage in debates that refine our understanding for everyone. These objects remind us that history is not a book written in stone, but a manuscript we are constantly translating, with new footnotes being added with every excavation season. So let this be the beginning of your own exploration, not the end. Look up the stories behind these artifacts. Read the compelling cases made by researchers who believe they rewrite history, and the equally thoughtful critiques from those who urge caution. Listen to the full conversation. Decide for yourself where the weight of evidence lies. Which of these mysteries lingers in your mind the most? Is it the practical genius of the Antikythera Mechanism, or the silent, sprawling question of the Nazca Lines? Share your thoughts below and let's continue this discussion. If you are fascinated by these hidden threads that connect our world, subscribe and join us as we keep unraveling the greatest story ever told, our own.